Hello there, Michelle Shorts here for My Favourite Things. Today I have a card to share with you where I'm creating a die cut floral arrangement using the Stitched Blooms Die-namics. So this is the set here. It's a really pretty set. I love the stitching detail on all of those different sizes of flowers, the flower centres and also the leaves. What I have done is I've kept the set intact. I haven't cut the dies apart at all, and I've run those through my die cutting machine with several colours of cardstock. So I'm using Boysenberry, Grape Jelly and Grapesicle for the flowers, the Lemon Chiffon for the centres, and then also the Field Day and Sour Apple for the leaves. And I've run those through twice with my die cutting machine so that I've got lots of different elements that I can grab from. Ordinarily I probably wouldn't necessarily want purple leaves, but actually I think they look really pretty and I'll probably use those on another card. But for this card in particular, I knew that I wanted to have the flowers be purple, the centres be the yellow and then also the green leaves. So I've just separated those out into bowls just so that it's easy for me to grab. I'm going to arrange all of my flowers onto an A2 sized white card base. So that's a finished size of 4¼ inches by 5½ inches. And I'm starting off by taking the flowers and just placing them down onto the top of the card so that I can see where I want them to be. I want to have the flowers kind of cascading from the top of the card. And I know that I'm going to have my elements overhanging the card base. I'm okay with that, but if you didn't want to have them overhanging, after you'd finished adhering them all, you could just cut those off the sides. I want to kind of mix and match the different sizes and then also the different shades of purple as well. I think it would look really nice creating the flowers with lots of different colours. I think rainbow would look really pretty, but I do love the different shades of purple, so I just stuck with the purple for my flowers. At this point, I could take a piece of press and seal or something like that, or some low tack tape, and kind of pick up all of the flowers, lift them off, add adhesive to the backs of them all and then press those down, and that would be a really quick way to adhere everything. But I'm a sucker for taking my time to be able to make the cards, and so actually I really enjoyed just creating the bouquet, kind of adding in leaves here and there underneath the different flowers. So I'm going to add them all individually. I'm using some On Point precision glue and I'm just adding the glue mainly to the centres of the flowers so that I can pop the leaves behind. So I'm just using some tweezers here just to help me out with the placement, just figuring out where I want them to go. And then I can add that leaf down underneath. When I do press down, you're going to be able to see that leaf stem through it, but I'm going to add a flower centre over the top so you won't see that in the end. And then I can kind of just go through and add in the different flowers. I'm going to try and, if I can, add the leaves quite quickly just so that the glue doesn't dry. Although I've only added glue to the centre, some of the leaves do kind of go quite underneath the centre of the flower, so it's quite helpful to kind of add those in before the glue dries too much. I'm cutting the flower stem, or the leaf stem, excuse me, off of this leaf here because I know that that's going to stick out otherwise. So I can just place that down and then add the flower on top. So I'm just going through here, adding all of those flowers on. Like I said, I want them to kind of look like they're cascading from the top of the card base. I do like the design principle of the rule of thirds. So the kind of idea is that your eye would be drawn to the top of the card or the top third of the card. Before I get going any further, I want to make sure that I've got space for my sentiment. So I'm going to stamp out my sentiment from the Birdie Brown Greetings Galore set, and I'm going to use the Get Well Soon sentiment. I thought it'd work quite nicely with the flowers, and I'm going to stamp it down onto some white cardstock. I did think about heat embossing it onto black cardstock, which is kind of like my go-to with sentiment. sentiments, but I thought that it might be a little bit harsh, so I went with the white today. And I'm going to stamp that down with extreme black ink, and I do stamp that a couple of times just so that I get a really nice crisp impression. And then I can cut that out with the Essential Stitched Sentiment Strips Die-namics, and I love these because they've got that stitching detail on them, and that's just going to help kind of bring all of the elements together with the stitching on the flowers. Although I love the fishtail banners on either side of the sentiment, I am going to cut those off just so that it fits the sentiment a little bit better. So just cut those with a mini guillotine, and then I can carry on arranging the flowers. Now I know where I'm going to place the sentiment. So I'm just placing that down first, and then I can add in the flowers. I want to have some kind of popping underneath the sentiment. And although I have adhered most of the flowers down flat, the last flower I do actually end up popping up. I had originally thought that I was going to pop some up and some be flat, but as it turned out, I did end up placing them all down flat apart from this one here, where I'm adding some thin foam tape onto the back of that, and then I can place that down. But when I add the centers, some of these centers are going to be popped up. Although the other flowers are flat, because some of them are on top of each other and kind of nestled in, you do still get some dimension purely just from the different layers of the cardstock. But like I said, some of these flower centers here that I'm adding on, I am popping some of those up as well. Even cutting tiny little pieces of those foam squares just so that I can add that dimension to some of these centers. And I think that yellow really adds like a nice pop of brightness onto the card. So I can just place my last one down here. And then I've added some foam tape onto the back of the sentiment. I haven't added it over the entire piece of the sentiment just because it's going to be popped up on quite a bit of those like cardstock here, and so I didn't want to, I wanted it to be flat, if that makes sense, so I didn't want to add the foam tape everywhere. And then to finish off, I wanted to add a bit of sparkle to the card, so I'm using some iridescent bubbles, just placing small dabs of the On Point Precision Glue there into the flower centres, and then I can add those iridescent bubbles on top. And some of them I'm placing in the middle, some of them I'm kind of offsetting, and then I'm just going to add a couple underneath that sentiment piece as well. And that's the card finished for today. Like I mentioned, it doesn't fit into a standard sized envelope, as you can see here, but I do really like it. If you wanted it to fit into the envelope, you can definitely cut those edges off, and I still think it would look really pretty, but I'm just going to create a custom sized envelope. Links to the products that I used will be in the description bar here on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.